We're joined now by Suzanne Stayer, Deputy Secretary of State with the Colorado Secretary of State's office. Thanks for joining us, Suzanne.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know if you've heard of the little story we've done about petition signatures.
Nothing.
There's a warning out now because going forward, there are ballot initiatives that you'll see people collecting signatures for right now. And they have to collect hundreds of thousands of signatures over all of these initiatives. And I know the Secretary of State put out a warning on Facebook a little more than a week ago. What was the warning and what was the purpose of it?
Well, the warning was for the circulator gatherers that, any fraudulent circulators were going to be cooperating with the DA's office like we did in the petition cases with the candidates, and that, this is an adversarial process. A lot of times with petitions, there are proponents and there are opponents, and so there are people looking at those signatures. And I think now that we've seen that kind of scrutiny on them, any kind of fraud in the petition process is going to come to light. Let's
start with the numbers. When it came to the candidates, they had to turn in 10,500 per congressional district, so a total of 10,500 they needed valid. In the end, all four of those candidates who petitioned on gathered 75,000 signatures. How many signatures does it take for one ballot initiative?
Well, this year in Colorado, it's just under 100,000 that need to be certified in order to get an initiative on the ballot. We recommend that you collect 1.5 times that, so we would be talking about 150,000 signatures per initiative.
And how many initiatives have you had paperwork saying we're collecting signatures for?
Well, we certified over 100 questions to the ballot this year. We had about 20 petitions pulled, and we have that are potentially circulating right now. 12 of those are with paid petition circulators, and so those are the ones that are more likely to be turned in.
So you're expecting for sure 12 different packs of petitions turned in with upwards of at least 100,000, if not 150,000 signatures each.
Right. We're expecting over 1 million.
Okay. So, given what we found with the candidate petitions, how can we be assured that none of these million signatures would be someone sitting in a room signing name and address and signing for these signatures?
Well, if one person is doing it, as we saw in the case with the candidate, it's a little bit easier to spot when you have one type of handwriting over and over again on a petition. I think the problem is if the handwriting varies, it's harder to tell. And so there's not a list of people out there. There's nowhere to go and look and see if your signature actually came up. But it is, as I said, an adversarial process at its heart. There are typically going to be opponents and proponents to petitions. Even in the question and phase while we're setting ballot questions, we will have opponents come in and proponents, and typically, or at least in the 12 that are being circulated by the paid petitioners right now, almost all of those have gone up to the Supreme Court once just on the question. And whether the question is stated fairly and contains a single subject. And so when we have cases like that where we have an adversarial process, I think you can count in part on the opponents coming in and doing a check like that because it's in their interest to not have the question on the ballot.
Meaning an opponent requesting from you, I want to see a sample of the petitions, and they'll look through it and try to find something to alert you guys to.
Correct.
What changes in the process for these petitions that you're going to review versus what you had to do with the candidate petitions?
Well, certainly if we see anything, this time we're going to be more vigilant in bringing it to the attention of the DA's offices. In terms of the process itself, it remains the same right now. The process is in statute and in our own rules that we have administratively. Going forward, I think we may see changes in that process, and we've certainly heard rumblings of that.
When we were talking beforehand, we've hinted that this change could be next year. I know Secretary of State Wayne Williams said he'd look at it over the summer, but there may not be a rush now because unlikely that you'll have the need for signatures next year. So you could wait. You almost have 2 years to worry about this?
Well, typically, if the election cycle remains as it is, I mean, we could have recalls, we could have other, special questions that come up. But in an off year, so in 2017, we won't have statewide candidates running in November. We typically will not have as many questions because the only question that can be on the ballot in an odd year is a Tabor-related tax question. And so I think we have a little bit of time, and we're probably going to need it because it's not something that we can implement on our own without some help from the legislature to at least fix some of these timelines.
Timelines and money, that's for sure.
Both.
We'll get into those timelines at another time. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Deputy Secretary of State Suzanne Stayert.